Greetings, everybody. So we're about to start. We just have to quickly confirm if all the speakers are here. This is perfect. We have all the speakers, and we will start the recording exactly in 3 minutes. We just need to make sure that our presenters, our invited guests, are able to share their screens. So just as many of you are aware, and also through reading the concept, the idea behind this conference was to convene women experts within academia and civil society to discuss the role of women within the land sector. So today we are joined by a group of women from universities, civil society, and also from non-governmental organizations that are promoting access to women land rights in Namibia, Zimbabwe, and also some from South Africa. We are also joined by leaders within government institutions, such as the Lesotho Land Administration Authority. We have the director joining us today, and we also have the executive director of the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform joining us for this event. So just give us 2 extra minutes just to make sure that we have all the speakers online and they are able to share their presentation. Mario, if you could please just load up the conference program for everyone to go through before we can start with Ms. Lena Teodoro to offer us the welcoming remarks. All right, just a quick check. Professor Olufemi, are you able to share your screen?
Can you tell me how I can do that on this? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Perfect. Good morning and
Okay.
welcome.
Good morning. I'm looking for the prompt to share. Where can I find the prompt? I'm not used to Microsoft's team.
No problem. So what you need to use is on the top of the screen, you will see the leaf button, and then there's a share button with an arrow up.
Okay, open share tray. Okay, I've seen that.
And it will ask you to share your screen or either share a window. So you can choose either one, which will work. And then you'll see if you have your presentation already open, you'll be able to select it.
Okay, let me see. I think I'm only seeing the screen here, your screen.
Okay. Do you get an option to share window? When you click the share option, yeah.
Window.
And you click on it, and then
I can still see just the screen, your screen.
Is your presentation open?
Yes, my presentation is open. Okay, let me do it again. Sorry. Okay, let's stop. Yeah, I'm only seeing your screen, this screen.
All right, not a problem. We have your presentation, so we can, it's fine if we navigate it.
All right, that's good.
Okay, that's fine. All right, perfect. Okay, and then the next speaker that we need to make sure is also here. Thank you, Prof. You can switch off your microphone. All right. We need to see if the Executive Director, Ms. Diakopi of the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform is here. Ms. Regina Balombola? Any update on the status of the Director?
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
She's busy logging on. Just give her 1 minute.
All right, perfect.
All right. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Regina. There seems to be an echo there.
Can you maybe allow her to be part of the presenters?
We are doing that now.
Yeah.
All right, Mario, can you please change Mr. Diakopi to a presenter? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Is it Royal? Good afternoon, Miss Mabakeng.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ms. Diakopi. Welcome.
I'm so sorry. My laptop is failing me here, and I'll just be talking from Regina's laptop.
No problem. That's perfect. No problem. We are just about 8 minutes behind, so we will start with all these presenters that are here. So, are you able to share your screen, and then also maybe switch on your camera?
Unfortunately, I can't share my screen because it's on the other laptop.
Oh, okay. Or you can email us the presentation as well, then we will share the screen for you. All right. We can see you. Perfect. Okay. All right. No, that part is sorted. We will just email us the presentation and then we'll project from our side.
You are saying we are 8 minutes behind. Maybe someone else do that while I'm emailing.
Yes, no problem. We were just making sure that it works before we start. We haven't started yet, so it's not a problem. I think we still have additional time on the program.
Okay, good.
Okay. If you could switch off your camera, then we can move on. Right. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, for everyone that decided to make time for today's event. We are about to start. We are just 10 minutes behind schedule, but I think everything is in order now. All the presenters that we're expecting to have, we have at least 80% of the presenters. I see that the transcription is on. I hope that's not a problem. So today's event is celebrating the role of women in the land sector within Southern Africa. We will be having a few speakers from both from academia and then also from non-governmental organizations and also from government. So this is our list of speakers. The concept was shared, and if you do need a copy, please do let us know. Please do let us know, and then we can share that with you. So we'll be having Ms. Juliana Useya from the University of Zimbabwe. We're also going to have Ms. Tsitsi Mupirari from the Midland State University, also in Zimbabwe. We're expecting a presentation or at least a few words from Ms. Melania from the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. She has been doing some research around women access to land rights. And then we'll be having Professor Olusola Olufemi, who will be offering us the opening remarks and set the tone for the event. When we are speaking about women access to land rights, what is it that we're speaking about? We're also going to welcome Ms. Julia. We can see you. Thank you. Great to have you here. We're also going to have Dr. Fatima from the University of Zambia, and she would also be sharing her experience as a woman professional within the land sector. We'll be having Ms. Matalai Dekatso. She is the Director General of the Lesotho Land Administration Authority, and she would also be sharing a few reflections and a presentation as well on the status of women land rights. I think one of the key parts of the presentations or today's session will be a presentation from Dr. Gaino Paratsa, who has been working on a gender strategy for Southern Africa, or at least for the Network of Excellence in Southern Africa. A presentation will also be shared by Ms. Hoidi Rameng from the Baisako University in Botswana, and she would also be sharing her experience and sharing some statistics on the status of women land rights, and then also going a bit more into the role of women within the land sector. So ladies and gentlemen, as a brief introduction, my name is Menare Royal Mabakeng. I am from the Department of Land and Property Sciences here at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. This event is organized as part of the Network of Excellence in Land Governance as a way to celebrate and also promote the role of women within the land sector. As many of you might know, the Network of Excellence in Land Governance works on building capacity around land professionals within various universities. The Namibia University of Science and Technology is the current node for the Network of Excellence of Land Governance, and the coordinator is Professor Uchinde Kashua, who unfortunately could not make it to today's event. But now we will be having the opportunity for this event to officially be welcomed by Ms. Elena Theodore. So before we give an opportunity to Ms. Theodore, quickly let's look at the program. So Ms. Theodore will be doing the welcoming introductions. Professor Olufemi will give the opening remarks by sharing that presentation. And then we'll go into a discussion where the presenters the list of speakers that I just mentioned will be going through their presentations, and the audience have an option to use the chat option to ask questions, or also just to raise up their hands, and then we can enable the microphone and the camera option for the participants. We will be, if time allows, we will go further into just a discussion to round up from the presentations, and then the last presentation for the day will be delivered by Ms. Dr. Gaino Paratsa on gender within the land sector, and then we will have a closing at around 12:30 or earlier. So just a general comment that I'd want to make. This conference was organized within 2 weeks. So we asked these speakers, at least at the last minute, to make themselves available. So we are quite grateful for you for making time for this event. After Professor Olufemi, we are going to go straight to the presentation by Ms. Diakupi, who is the acting director at the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, and has worked within the land sector for over 10 years. Ms. Theodore, who is from the Department of Land and Property Sciences here at NAS. She is has a background in valuation and has been an active member within the Network of Excellence in Land Governance. Ms. Theodore, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Well, my name is, thank you so much, Royal. My name is Elena Theodore. Thank you to each and everyone thank you for each and everyone for being here with us today as we celebrate the role of women in the land sector in Southern Africa, reflecting on the experiences, progress, and the way forward. The Southern Africa node on the Network of Excellency in Land Governance, which is NELGA, aims to enhance the role of the selected African university and academic institution in support of the land governance development, implementation, and monitoring. NAST, as the selected NELGA node under the Department of Land and Property Sciences, welcome experts from academia, civil society, and the government at this event. At this one-day conference on women's land rights, we have speakers from Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, Zambia, Mozambique, Angola, and Namibia that will explore and reflect on the status quo of the gender equality on land rights in Southern Africa and promising interventions and ways this could be strengthened to achieve the gender equality in land governance. I wish you all, and especially the guest, an interesting day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Theodore. All right, so without further ado, we are going to have the presentation from Professor Olufemi. We just see if Mario has a copy, and then we'll load that up. And before we get into the presentation, Professor Olufemi decided to make time for this event. She has worked as a planning educator and researcher in Nigeria, South Africa, and Canada. Olusola was the coordinator of Women in Planning Network of the Commonwealth Association of Planners from 2000 to 2004. And she has been involved in mentoring young urban and regional planners, specifically in the areas of urban management and planning, health, housing, homelessness, gender, and food security. She is the perfect opening speaker that could share her experiences. So Professor Olufemi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Minari. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the host institutions, Namibia University of Science and Technology, and the Network of Excellence on Land Governance in Africa. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to my colleague and friend, Land Rights of Women in Southern Africa. You'll be wondering, I lived in Southern Africa for close to 10 years, precisely in South Africa and Botswana, but I've traveled a bit in the region to Zimbabwe and Eswatini. So those, at least I have a fair knowledge of the landscape of Southern Africa. So this morning, I say again, thank you for inviting me and for me to do the introductory remarks. Southern Africa, can we go to the next slide, please? Southern Africa, there's a common ground between the countries there, even though they're different, but there's a common ground. And what's the common ground? Their economies are largely dependent on agriculture, and the agricultural sector is a major contributor to the GDP. There's a wide spectrum of land policies, a variety of redistribution, reform, and tenure policies relating to land, whether it's consensual or market-based, or whether it's by forcible confiscation, that is land evictions. Also, there's also the politics of difference between and within communities and households, and difference and within or between countries. For example, the land policies in Zimbabwe, in South Africa itself, and in Mozambique, they're quite different when you go into details of the policies there. There's also difference in groups, tribal groups, difference, they have different needs. There's also difference, politics of difference among women, whether they are youth, elderly, widowed, or women-headed households. Also, another common ground is the shared colonial history, which has dispossessed and impoverished rural people in this region. The growing impact of neoliberal globalization, deregulation of markets, and the withdrawal of state support to agricultural producers has also been an issue among the countries in Southern Africa. Also, relating to that is the debt servicing and rescheduling. This has all compromised the way land reform has taken place in the region. We also see that poverty, marginalization of women, high rates of unemployment, and lack of access to social services like health education has also been a common ground among these countries, in addition to recurring drought and the incidence of HIV/AIDS. So that's the common ground on which this remarks is based. Next slide. My main objective in these remarks is just to reflect on women's land rights and how land can be a unifier in attaining gender equality and equity. So I'm basing this on the theme of the International Women's Day this year, and also bearing in mind that women's land rights take a central place in developmental discourse, especially women's access to land resources and natural resources, security of the land tenure system, improving women's access to and representation in decision-making relating to land control at the household and community levels is also very vital. As a result, information and education about legal instruments are all backbone to women accessing land. And as African feminists and women educators or advocates, we seek better and more secure land access, especially for rural African women. Next slide. But bearing in mind that land suitable for cultivation is becoming scarce, either due to competition or due to climate crisis. A few policy indicators that set the tone for today's discussion is going back to the 1995 Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and the forward-looking blueprint for advancing women's rights and gender equality. And I think on the 25th anniversary, the UN Women, they launched the Generation Equality Forum, which is a multi-stakeholder and multi-generational campaign and platform to unify all sectors and accelerate bigger and bolder commitments and collective action for gender equality. But the big but is that gender inequality still exists, despite the major steps and the major strides that women have attained since 1995. And there's a continuation of regressive laws and discriminatory practices, as well as new and emerging global crises, for example, the COVID-19, which continue to threaten the gains that women have made since Beijing. However, this year, we talk about gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. So how can we attain this? How can women's land rights be sustainable into the future? The Committee on the Status of Women also emphasized achieving gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls in the context of climate change, environmental and disaster risk reduction policies and programs. All this form the backbone of achieving women's land rights in Southern Africa or even in Africa in totality. However, there's some obstacles, which I say some issues that we still face as women in attaining land rights in Southern Africa or Africa generally. There's been shift in gender conceptions over the decades, and we know how these shifts have occurred, whether it's the debate between African feminism and white feminism, intersectional feminism, and all those the different gender conceptions that have emerged over the decade. There's a rise in traditional authority in Africa, and also the issue of peri-urban land, peri-urbanization, as it impacts on land used for agriculture or backyard farming, the change in constitutions. Yeah, this is really a serious one. The change in constitutions. The different countries in the Southern Africa, they have their different constitutions. But the constitution is a democratic one, which emphasizes, if you look at them, they emphasizes gender equality. They emphasizes elimination of discrimination against women. But there's persistent inequality due to constitutions without constitutionalism. There's also the constitution bias and contradiction. For example, I just take the example of the South African Constitution. In case of land reform, where women's right of access to land is denied through the practice of customary law. So there's that conflict or contradiction between the customary law and the contemporary law. Also, this is very, very critical in women's access to land rights, the existence of patriarchal hegemony and the customary practices that are discriminatory and often patriarchal and often emphasize stereotypes between men and women or girls and boys. Also, we have these moribund colonial legislations that continue to create cities for men. And then we have the informal land rights, which are unprotected. Another major obstacle is the intersection between neoliberal capitalism and contemporary representation of patriarchy, capitalism, and colonialism. But one of the obstacles that's really impacting, because when we look at some of these Southern African regions, the extractive industry, the rate at which minerals, the natural resources are being extracted on the land, they disproportionately make women vulnerable to impacts of the destruction of land and natural resources in this region. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the importance of land to women, which is why we are here today. Land is so crucial to the life and sustenance of women and girls, because we see land as a natural resource, is a productive asset. We use land for food, water, and agricultural production. Land depicts our identity, the inheritance, the heritage, our heritage in the context of Africans and Southern Africans in particular. We use land for farming, fishing, and livestock rearing. So we are really attached to land. And that's why they say Mother Nature. Mother Nature is feminine, I would say, because we are the custodians and carers of land as women. Next slide, please. So here I'd like to just briefly remind us of what land right is. And there are various conceptions of land right. It means all easements, rights of way, licenses, leases, surface use, agreements, and other interest in rights in real estate. But the particular one that I want to hone on is the land rights are usually conceived as rights and legitimacy to access, to use, to own, to control, enjoy, and exploit land. This land rights is lacking among women. Land rights, property rights, access, use, ownership of land is usually, women are usually at the secondary recipients of these land rights. And we have to bear in mind that there are some legal instruments that affirm land rights for women. And one of them that I would like to refer to is the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. On the of the African Charter was adopted I think in Mozambique in 2003, and it was entered in 2005. There are various articles that affirm the rights of women in this protocol. First of all, the elimination of discrimination against women, the right to participation in the political and decision-making process, and the right to positive cultural context, and finally, the right to inheritance. So all these articles affirm the rights of women in Southern Africa. Can we go to the next slide, please? So why women's land rights in Southern Africa? I emphasize again, women are landless and landless. Women as laborers, custodians, carers, caretakers, and land users and land tenants. That's one of the reasons. Less than 20% of women's landholders are women, and women make up more than 60% of small farmers. They provide 70% of the workforce in agricultural production in Southern Africa. So there's the struggle for land and livelihood among women, and women tend to hold the derived rights, and their access to land is mediated either through marriage or through borrowing or through inheritance of the land. Women in Southern Africa continue to face discrimination in accessing and owning land, and women's land rights are still largely discriminated against. I cannot emphasize this more. So the traditional exclusion of women from property and land ownership on gender grounds is rife as well in this region. And this impacts on women's economic and physical security in the region. Next slide, please. So what is at stake for women? There are several things that are at stake. One of them is the climate emergency. We all know we are facing climate crisis, whether through heat waves, degradation of land, and natural resources. Women's livelihoods is being threatened by climate emergency, especially in the rural areas. The issue of land titling. Most women in Southern region and in Africa, they don't have land titles, or their titles are jointly owned with men. Land ownership, land inheritance, land governance, all these are dominated by men. And also the issue of conflict and displacement. There are so many climate refugees or climate homeless people right now, and most of them are women who have been dispossessed of their property, dispossessed of the land that they have, that they reside in. The land tenure rights, most women don't have that tenure rights. And then coupled with all this is the foreigners buying. Give examples of this later in their presentation. My knowledge is that of Nigeria, where the Chinese are really buying land for farming in northern Nigeria. And this is a big issue in terms of food security. Also, gender justice or gender injustice in women's access to land. Thank you. Next slide, please. So in rounding up my presentation or my remarks, I just want to say that we are the receiving and land degradation. Women bear the brunt of social fragmentation because their families are displaced. This social fragmentation is caused by land inequality and inequity. It's caused by land conflicts and displacement and land injustice. And women also bear the brunt of discrimination from customary laws. So today, how do we secure land rights for women for a sustainable future? Women's secure land rights is about respect, it's about dignity, it's about protection of their primary rights. The biggest takeaway this morning for us as women is, do we see land as a unifier in the ecological crisis and a sustainable future for our women in Southern Africa? So as we go through the presentations today, I just want us to have that in mind. Would land be a unifier for generations to come, for intergenerations? Would land be a unifier to eradicate gender inequality, equity in the Southern African region? Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I wish all of us a productive morning as we listen to our speakers, both from academia and practice. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Olufemi, for the presentation. And I like the ending quote that women secure land rights is about respect, dignity, and protection of primary rights, which sets the tone for the event today. So just a general announcement. We're going to have, if you have any questions, you can raise up your hand. We will take note of those questions, and then you can have an opportunity to ask them straight to the presenters. And if you have your questions and they're really burning, you can also use the chat option in the options that you have under MS Teams on your right. So thank you so much, Professor Olufemi. I think the presentation was quite interesting and an eye opener as well. That land should or can be a unifier in the fight for gender equality. Now we are going to have the director of the Ministry of the Executive Director of the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform here in Namibia. She has been working within the land sector for a few years. So just give me a second. Ms. Dagupi, is your presentation ready?
Yes.
Can you please share your screen?
Yeah, assist me to share the screen. Share.
All right, while we wait for Ms. Dagupi to complete the screen sharing, Ms. Dagupi has a Bachelor's of Science in Geographic Information Systems and a Master's in Geomatics, and has completed several courses in management and leadership. She has extensive experience in general management, policy formulation, land management, and land reform. She's currently the executive director, the deputy executive director of Agriculture, Water, and Land Reform. She's also currently the acting executive director. She is the chairperson of the Land Reform Advisory Commission and program director of the Program for Communal Land Development. So when we are talking about women access to land rights in Namibia, we are having the perfect person to share experiences and also the perfect person where we can, pose our question on the status of access to women land rights in Namibia. So recently, Ms. Ndiakupi was appointed to the board of directors of the Namibia Statistics Agency for a period of 3 years. And since last year, she has been, as I mentioned, appointed as the acting executive director of the ministry that is setting the tone on how land is managed in Namibia, which is the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. So Ms. Ndiakupi, to welcome and thank you for making time for us today. You can share your presentation. Ms. Ndiakupi, we were able to see your screen a few seconds ago.
But were you seeing the presentation?
Yes, we were able to see your presentation as well.
Is it that one?
It's loading. Yes. Now it's just for you to put it in PowerPoint mode, please. While we are waiting for maybe while we're waiting for that to load. Oh, that's fine. That's perfect. Okay. All right. Just to mention a general announcement or just giving a shout out, we have Professor Eugene Chigbu, who is one of our professors within the Department of Land and Property Sciences, and also one of the leading experts within this field of gender and women land rights. There's quite a lot of literature that he has put out that you can find online. Just wanted to say, Prof. Chigbu, while we're waiting for the director, you maybe have a few words. All right. It seems Professor Chigbu is not available. Mr. Kopi, yes, you can please go ahead. I'm seeing there are two dark screens on your presentation. If you can maybe move that, is the way for you to remove that. Okay, perfect. The floor is yours. Welcome.
First, let me greet all the dignitaries, presenters, and all listeners online. As it was indicated, we were really asked to do this on last minute, and last week we were busy with our strategic plan outside Windhoek. We only really tried to put something together, not to disappoint on last minute. I hope we will at least get something out of this short presentation. I am not going to talk about myself. Royal has done a good job on that. The presentation outline that I have for you is consisting, of course, of our mandate, which we feel as a land sector, the legal frameworks that we have adopted, structures, women access to land ownership, challenges, and then we can conclude. As land sector, of course, we are really there to manage and administer and ensure equitable access to Namibia's land resource. Now, this equitable access to Namibia's land resource, it can be taken as really a matter of previously disadvantaged Namibians getting into what is usually have been owned only by previously advantaged Namibians. But when within the previously advantaged Namibians, you find again other previously disadvantaged Namibians, and who are mainly women, whether it's women from the previous disadvantaged Namibians, but also women from previously advantaged Namibians. So before independence, all the legislations really excluded women from access to land or to land ownership. And immediately before, after independence of our country, the Constitution, which laid foundation to all other legislations, recognized women as to be part and parcel of role players in the country, including land. So then we moved in after the Constitution with the National Land Policy, with the National Resettlement Policy, which are really advocating for women, and Commercial Agricultural Land Reform Act. In there, it's specifically promoting women access to agricultural land. And Communal Land Reform Act, which has been before customary advocating only for men. When we got independence, and from our constitution, we then came up with Communal Land Reform Act that also specifically articulating the advocacy of women to access to land. And this act is a balance. Everyone now can register their rights in the deeds office, because before independence, that goes to the current now flexible land tenure, which is really allowing women and men in informal settlement in urban area to have really access to land ownership of, and have followed others who have been at the helm of land management in the country, in the form of executive directors in the Ministry of the former Land Reform, other deputy executive directors who have really paved the way for us in management portfolios to manage issues of land. We have as well seen that before independence, all our traditional leaders have been of male fellow countrymen, but now, although it's not as we want to see on a 50-50 basis, we are seeing women coming in to take roles of chiefs, chief council, head men, and village head women. And this is so key to land management, because in communal areas, land management is where the decisions are made. They are the primary allocator of land in the communal areas. That's why when you see women coming in, you can be assured, or you feel comfortable that women issues or women land ownership, it's being addressed, and they are also trained to advocate for women land allocation and land ownership. I have informed you about the Agricultural Commercial Land Reform Act, which brings in the issue of Land Reform Advisory Commission and the resettlement committees. These are the bodies that recommend to the minister on who should get the allocation on resettlement farms. And deliberately, because these bodies are made up of representations from different institutions. One being, for example, traditional authority have to send their representation there. Farmers unions and so deliberately the legislation was made to ensure that at least the minister have power to allocate at least 5 women to the Land Reform Advisory Commission and also to resettlement committees. But we have as well seen that even that we were still on the minority in the representation of those bodies. What the minister does now, as he's requesting for representation, he will ask them to send 2 nominations for him to choose. One a male and one female, and this have assisted him to balance. Because of that, you can imagine from only male-dominated sectors, at least we are not yet there on a 50-50 basis, but at least we have allocated on the resettlement about exactly 1,479 as opposed to our male of 2,187. You can understand that at the beginning of our land reform, most male were the one getting allocated resettlement farms. But now we have moved to 40%, and we are moving up. We'll soon clock the 50% because deliberately in the criteria, women are allocated more score points to ensure that they come out. As, of course, men are getting other points from owning heads of cattle, knowing that not many women have ear tags on their names. So they are now, we are adding that extra points just to ensure that they also come out of the, or they come out and be allocated the resettlement farms. We where we've seen we have of land is within communal. This is a person to be allocated is a male child, is a husband, and then it is inherited in that line. But within the new policy of Communal Land Reform Act, we are trying to balance that automatic a person to inherit her husband is his wife, or a male or a girl child, whoever is available at that time in point in time. Maybe others went out because of marriage. A male child normally is the one remaining home. So that's where normally male children are still getting to inherit. But female children are as well protected to inherit if they are at home. But women are automatically to inherit their husbands in line with the Communal Land Reform Act. As I have told you, we have another system of the flexible land tenure system, which is a system really to ensure that people that are living in informal settlements are getting an ownership of an asset. Now, most of those people in informal settlements are women, and they are really getting these tenure rights to ensure that they are not moved with the town expansions. We are surveying land for them and then allocate it and register it in the deeds office on their own names. And we have seen that women in this flexible land tenure system, most of them are the ones that are leading those associations that are managing those systems in urban areas. However, challenges still persist. Of course, customary laws and traditional laws sometimes, unless just in the courts of law, still takes precedency over the statutory law, is a reality. And our women are there in the villages. They, if they fail at the land boards, if they fail at the appeal tribunal, it's very difficult for them. They don't even get to the appeal tribunal so that they have their case heard. And this is really sometimes because of lack of information and understanding. And we really need, as a government, to create awareness of this Communal Land Reform Act, of communal Agricultural Communal Land Reform Act, and the role of the communal land boards, which are the key allocators of this of this Communal Land Reform Act, because they have to ratify what the traditional authority have allocated to ensure that it was done properly. And really, one of the main key reasons is really to protect women. The majority of our women in communal areas are not aware, as I have stated, of the legal provisions really to protect their land rights. And this is really where we have to take a charge as government or as leaders to ensure that they understand and the processes are made smooth for them to ensure they can fight for their rights. But there is tenure security law as it is in legislation. It's not enough to address the issue of women accessing land and to make productive of that land. Among others is grabbing of land, grabbing of assets, fencing off, because women physically we are unable to start fighting the physical fights in there and start grabbing land. And the land is normally grabbed from us. You can we are again faced with challenges of as we have this land allocation, we are faced challenges of the agrarian reform, access for women to move from a traditional way of farming to really farming for the market. And these economic opportunities, resources, our women are still really lacking behind of getting. There are sometimes so many requirements for you to get this access to funding or access to support. Those are some. And there is also a perception that it's and attitudes towards female title holders. These are things that are beyond the statutory, and one need to work them out moving forward. Therefore, when you empower a woman, you practically have empowered men as well. Female, both female and male children. Therefore, we just need really to ensure that we empower our women. They have the right information. Processes are streamlined so that they are aggrieved. They have a way of resolutions that does not prolong their distress. And finally, is legislation of all women. We are talking of legislation of all women. Now we talk of women that are married, women that are born in a certain family, but the women that are still suffering, and we are looking for legislation to include this type of women, this category of women, are the women that are being divorced. Now you are married, you are taken away to another person's home because that's the culture. That's the divorce. To come back, it's difficult. And where you were taken, you are not welcome. This is something that we need to take home and start also ensuring that our legislation are inclusive. Thank you so much for having me online. Back to you, Royal.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jacobi, and I also appreciated the last comment that when you empower women, you are also empowering men as well. So it is a win-win situation that we can have. So what we're going to have with the next speaker, thank you, Ms. Jacobi. You can stop sharing your screen as we go to the next speaker. The next speaker is going to be the director of the Lesotho Land Administration Authority. She made time for this event, although it was also short notice. Similar request to the one that we made to all the participating speakers. So what we are going to have next is, so Miss.
I'm sorry. You
Sorry?
know you have Melania online. Now I'm failing to. Okay, I'll just close. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. So Ms. Matalai is the CEO and the executive officer and the director of the Land Administration Authority and serves on the board of directors. She has been the principal secretary of cabinet in charge in the Prime Minister's office for the overall supervision of the ministry, looking at setting objectives and guidelines as well as strategies. So had or ran her own cleaning company. This is a general cleaning franchise responsible for general cleaning in South Africa. So if you do have your hand up, please do wait. We are going to call up your name at the end of Ms. Matai's presentation. So questions for Professor Lofemi and Ms. Jakupi and also Ms. Matalai will be discussed at the end of Ms. Matali's presentation. I do apologize for butchering the name. She has also spent about 5 years as the Director of Human Resources in the Mountain Blue County, and she has worked for 6 years as a corporate secretary responsible for provision of security, a leading voice within the area of land rights and promoting land registration in Lesotho. We have a voice that can speak, and Ms. Matalai is the perfect person that can share her experience on what is the status of women access to land rights in Lesotho. So Ms. Matalai, if you do have, you can switch on your microphone and start your presentation.
Greetings from Lesotho. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting us as the Land Administration Authority in Lesotho. We are very glad that we've been recognized. And even though the notice was short, we are here today. My name is Mata Edi Magele Sukhanso. I'm the Director General and Chief Executive of the Land Administration Authority in Lesotho. If we can go to the next slide. Here in Lesotho, we come a long way because in the past, even after independence, especially married women or women who are unmarried were not provided for or recognized in our system. And I want to tell you that in Lesotho, land is a source of wealth. You cannot exist if you don't have land, because we have to protect each other. Hence why in 1993, the Constitution for the first time under Section 107 provided that without prejudice to any allocation of land that was made before the commencement of this Constitution, all women should be recognized to have land. Section 107 of the Constitution provides that land in Lesotho is vested in the Basotho Nation and held in trust by the king. The king of Lesotho is the paramount person and the head of state. So land is vested in the Basotho, but it's held in trust by the king. We also have the Deeds Registry Act of 1967, which also provides that all land has to be registered in Lesotho so that we can protect, we as LAA, the Land Administration Authority, we can protect your title to land by giving you a lease. Next slide, please. We also have the Local Government Act number 6 of 1997, which also provides on how land should be allocated. Here in Lesotho, the local councils are the ones who do the allocations, be it in the urban or rural areas. We as the LAA, ours is to make sure that we protect your title by giving you a lease. We have got different types of leases, from residential, whereby you are given a title for up to 90 years. Agricultural is the same. Industrial, 60 years. Commercial, petroleum, religious, educational, and many others. So there are different types which can be given to individuals and companies or churches or schools. The Legal Capacity of Married Persons Act of 2006 entrenched the rights of women by repealing Section 14 of the Deeds Registry Act, which initially prohibited registration of immovable property in the names of women married in community of property. Under Section 5 of the said Act, spouses married in community of property have equal powers to administer the joint estate. In the past, it was not like that. But now the law provides that where a person is married in community of property, either under customary law or civil law or any other law, the woman's name should be disclosed in the lease. The full names of the spouse must be disclosed and also be provided whether the marriage is in or out of community of property. Next slide, please. Excuse me, the next slide. Hello? Am I still on the floor?
Yes, you're still on the floor. The transition is taking a bit of time.
Okay, 2 slides. Next slide, please. The other one, please. The law goes further to say no transaction shall be made without the consent of the other spouse, meaning where the male spouse want to transfer property, the consent of the woman or the wife should be clearly spelled out. And if a spouse unreasonably withholds consent, the other spouse can approach the court for recourse or remedy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Again, we as LLA, being the land registrar, are not allowed to register any documents if such registration will be in conflict with rights of the other spouse. So it is mandatory that the full names of the spouse should be spelled out, clearly spelled out. The next slide, please. As a result, even under the Land Act of 2010, Section 10 introduces joint title to land rights held by spouses married in community of property. Like I said earlier on, it does not matter whether the marriage is under customary, civil, or any other law, irrespective of when the marriage took place. Even for polygamous marriages, because they still exist in Lesotho, it is said that all the households should have their own land and be registered in both the name of the two spouses. I thank you. Unless there are other questions. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Matalai. I think the views that are presented in how women are protected, especially the ones in marriage from Lesotho, is quite interesting. We will have questions a little bit later on. So what we're going to do now, thank you so much again mentioning the short notice and making time for this. So we have a few questions for the presenters. So we are restructuring the approach. So if we can have Professor Olufemi, Ms. Diakopi, and then also Ms. Matalai on the floor. Your screens, we can just have you go through some of the questions that have been shared. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we're going to start off with the last. Thank you. All right, and then Ms. Diakopi. All right. All right, perfect. Ms. Jacobi's camera is still loading. But now the first question that goes out is for Ms. Matalai. So the question from Dr. Paratsa is, so we are making some general time adjustments. We just hope that the next speakers will keep to the 10 minutes. We were a bit delayed, but I do believe that we will be able to keep the conference to end exactly. At least 1 o'clock. So the first question that goes out is they would want to know more on the role of the Lesotho Land Administration Authority regarding dispute resolution. What role does the authority play in the resolution of disputes? Yes, Ms. Matalai, your microphone is off.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. As per the LA Act of 2010, we as an authority does not play any bigger role in dispute, but we have a mediation. We only do mediation between parties where maybe there's encroachment on the other side or where parties don't see eye to eye. But with regard to disputes, the parties have to approach the courts. We have got land courts in Lesotho, so by the land courts. I thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. So this next question is for Professor Olefemi. You shared a very interesting presentation on how a few issues around the landlessness of women and how that has been creating challenges. So a question that comes up is, what are the gender transformations? How do I read this clearly? My apologies. What are the approaches that women in the land sector need to initiate in order to create a platform for the voices of the underrepresented women to be heard, especially regarding land rights? What is it that we women can do? We have Ms. Matalai, we have Ms. Jacobi, we also have other women here that are currently working in the land sector. What can we do in our capacity as professionals in order to advance the rights of women?
Thank you, Minari. First of all, I think it's been an interesting morning, and I think I've learned a lot in the short amount of time. For women, we have to be more vocal. We have to be more visible. And I really like the presentations because it seems women are at the forefront. So when we are vocal, when we are visible, we can inform, we can raise awareness of some of the shortcomings in our legislation, of the shortcomings in practice, and then by that, there could be transformation. Because if we are vocal and visible, they know that women stand for something. And it goes back to why women's land rights. It's because this is our life. It's a sustenance. We practically walk on land. Without land, we are nothing. And that's why I emphasize that land can be a unifier between men and women, between boys and girls. So for us, for gender transformation in our policies, in our programs, in our projects, women have to be visible. The voice of women needs to be heard. We need to educate, we need to inform the younger generation, and even ourselves. We need to inform women in the rural areas because there's lack of information. Most of these women, they are not even aware of their legal rights to land. They are not even aware of their legal rights or even their rights at all. They don't even know they have rights. So when we inform and educate, when we involve these women, we are making ourselves visible and we are making our voices heard.
Thank you. I think that's clear in terms of women making their voices heard. And then we also have Ms. Jacobi here, who has been at the forefront of some of the policy formulation and also speaking up on the rights of women. There is a specific question on Namibia. Is there an example that Ms. Jacobi is aware of on how civil society have been working with government to initiate the security of women land rights? And we are aware of, we have the Sheikh Dwellers Federation from the urban areas that work on securing women land rights. I think there are also some other example of, what is it, we had, yeah, Mr. Kupi would be more knowledgeable. Mr. Kupi, I see there's an echo.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm using hundreds of laptops. There are good examples, and in Namibia, in the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform have really been working very closely with civil society. And I can give a very good example of people that have really worked with us at the Legal Assistance Center. Mm-hmm. They have assisted us in policy formulations and as well as on advocacy, going out there to the field, doing awareness to our women, and mostly doing awareness and representing them whenever they need representation on legal matters. What really is, and they have assisted us in printing out brochures, and so we are working hand in hand with civil society when it comes to land management. We have seen that civil society was one of the members of the Commissioner of Inquiries on issues of ancestral land rights, have played a very prominent role there, and they were appointed by His Excellency to advocate on issues of land rights. But just to go back to what my colleagues, just to add on what my colleague have said, is that this issue of empowering women and ensuring that we protect their rights starts with everyone's rights, being it men or being it women. How does it work? Sometimes you see a vulnerable man going through something that is not right or illegal, or being squeezed out of their land because of a powerful one. And because by their nature, they can report, and if you can deal with that matter, you have already set a precedence for women's cases. They will be resolved easily because there is a trendsetter. So what I'm trying to say is that we must just ensure that the law is implemented correctly and rightly so as it is, to whoever is being disadvantaged, and in that way you'll get you set a precedence for all other cases, which mainly or mostly will be for women. Thank you, Royal.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Jacobi, for addressing those questions. There's also a very interesting question, and this one I would want it to be open up, sort of answered also by Professor Olufemi, and then also to you, Ms. Jacobi. But we will do that at a later stage once we finish all these presentations, because I think some of those questions around customary and statutory law will also be addressed by the next speakers. So again, if this was in person, a round of applause for the speakers. Thank you so much. Now we are going to have the next presenter. You can switch off your camera and microphone. We're going to have the next presenter, who is Ms. Juliana Usea. She is from the University of Zimbabwe. Ms. Julia is currently a lecturer in the Department of Geomatics Engineering at the University of Zimbabwe. Her educational background is in engineering and geoinformation engineering from the University of Jilin University in China. And her research interest is around spatial data infrastructure, agent-based simulation, GIS, remote sensing, and sensing applications. Somebody that we have similar interest with. So Ms. Juliana, if you are able to share your screen and your presentation, or yes, that's perfect. Welcome, Ms. Juliana, and thank you for making time for the conference. You can start when you're ready.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. It's an honor to be part of this conference, the webinar. I'm trying to put on slideshow. I hope it will come. Right. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can see your screen. You can go ahead.
All right, fine. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you all the other presenters who presented before me. So I'm just going to try and be brief on what I'm going to talk about. So generally, I'm just going to touch on the women in Zimbabwe, as they are the backbone in providing the services for Zimbabwe, and then the little bit on the land distribution that has happened here, and then the women ownership, and then some of the challenges that we are facing as women in Zimbabwe, and then the way forward. So you find that Zimbabwe has got an agro-based economy, and then our women, they are playing a leading role when it comes to the agriculture. And then the major labor force that we get is coming from the women as well as the children. So the women are the ones who have the burden to be feeding the family. And then they go out of their way in trying to provide everything. So what we require is Zimbabwean women, we are saying we want significant recognition when it comes to the issues of land tenure, especially in this sustainable development processes which are occurring in Zimbabwe. This is mainly because this land that we have is the fundamental resource that women have, especially in the rural areas. And you find that our women here in Zimbabwe constitute about 53% of the total population. And of that 53%, 86% of these women are residing in the countryside, that is the rural areas, and they are dependent on land for their livelihoods. So you find that their labor force probably would be talking about 70%. And then we had the land distribution exercises which have taken place here in Zimbabwe, starting with 1980, when we gained our independence. So that's when the official land reform program started. And by that time, we could say there was 5% women ownership on the land. And then came 2000. We then also reintroduced what is called the fast track land reform program. And by that time, or after the 2000, we can see that there's a slight increase. We are now having women land ownership of about 12% to 27%, which is understandable. And then come 2020, the government also launched what is called the National Regularization Program, by this, we are saying the government is trying to tighten the loopholes that are happening when it comes to the issues of land, and then they are trying to bring some sanity to the informal settlements which are besides all this, our women, they are still lacking equal access to the land and then the property ownership. So what we want is, we want our women to take this chance, the National Regularization Program. Women, they need to stand out and then take up the opportunities. They need to fight for their rights, especially regarding these land rights. So, some of the challenges that our women are facing. The first one is that on paper, we are saying our women have equal rights compared to the men when it comes to owning the land and any other properties, be they houses, the farm implements which are given. But in the event that their husbands pass away, that's when the reality strikes. Most of these women are left with nothing. You find that the in-laws, they are still trying to come and inherit the land, and then probably the women will just be left with just a house. So a house accommodating the children, but nowhere to grow their crops and so on. And then during the land allocation, the land reform program, we are saying that there are issues that we need to tighten. And then you find that most women, they do not have this land. I don't know, should we say maybe when the land was being allocated, there was lack of awareness amongst us, the women? Or should we say it's just lack of knowledge? Or it was just unwillingness amongst us to also be landowners? And then the other thing could be that we look down upon ourselves. We just say it's the men thing, let the men do it. But we need to tighten up. So when it comes to the formal law, we are saying the women have the right to buy the land and own or sell the properties that they have, regardless of their marital status. So let's try to work on this and then maybe raise awareness amongst our women and then try to overcome some of these challenges. So the way forward, we are saying, yes, the government is trying to come up with some progressive changes with the constitution and then the policies when it comes to the women's rights on land in Zimbabwe. And then the other find that the government has tried to do some sponsorship to women who are involved in the STEM side. So we are just saying that the aim of this STEM program was to equip the women who have the scientific, the technological, the engineering, and then the mathematical skills, since these ones are required to drive the development. So upon working on this STEM program, we are saying those underprivileged children, they can get support, not them just rushing to get. Us as academia, what we are doing is we are saying we need more of this career guidance. We need to be moving, try to talk to the women, educate them, raise awareness. We want to empower them. We also need to boost their confidence. And then when they come as academia, when they come to attend these programs, they need mentorship. What is required? How can they survive in this male-dominated field? And then we also try to engage them in the different activities which will be taking place. Like on the 5th of February, we had what is called a mapathon. We trying to engage these girls to participate in these issues, at least have them have that experience on what is required, at least to conscientize them. And then you can see that the response is favorable. Some of the girls, they are also coming to be participating in these activities. And then we also try to help them to, when it comes to the celebrate international days, we are saying, let's come, let's enjoy, let's equip them with knowledge through these gatherings. So on the 8th of March, we also had another activity where they had a visit to the different companies, and then they can also get some mentorship. So what we are saying is we want to catch them young. So let's try by all means give them the career guidance they need, and then mentor them such that they can be leaders for tomorrow. And then some of the projects that we are undertaking department, we are undertaking the mapping activities. How are they going to involve also the community as they do the mapping, so that participatory mapping? And then women should also be involved in these activities and know that they have their rights when it comes to the land. And then they also need to take part in some of the projects, the governance, the adjudication, and then capacity building, just making sure that everyone, wherever they are also educated, they are capacitated, they are also empowered, and we raise their confidence. This is what I have to say for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Juliana, and you were exactly on time. The presentation addressed some issues around the need for capacitating young women at the early on. So what we're going to have as the next presenter is Ms. Regina. Regina is working on young women within the land sector. Regina, are you here? Not Regina Valombola, but Regina Kaholongo.
Yes, I am here.
Oh, okay. Are you going to share your screen? All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Just give me a second, Regina. So Regina is currently the representative for the Youth Initiative for Land in Africa. She worked in the field of land administration and has also been an intern within the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. She holds a bachelor's honors degree in land administration and majored in environmental issues for her thesis. And her research interests currently include promoting youth access to land rights, women access to land, climate change, environmental sustainability, and development management. Regina, you have exactly 10 minutes to share your experience within the sector. You can start.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Royal, for the introduction. First of all, I would just like to appreciate this space where women are given voices. I mean, given a space to be heard at least I didn't hear men speak, and for me that is like empowerment. Next slide, please. My presentation is short and brief, and it's mostly just touching on the role of women in the land sector. As a young woman, I would just like to highlight few things that when I think of women access to land, when I think of women access to land, I would like people to think about. For me, it's like the fact that only 20% of the world population, only 20% of women of the world population have access to land. And when we look at the global population, it speaks volume, and we need to sit and rethink of what are we not doing. Because if we are looking into the current laws and the mechanisms, and then we look at the world total populations, and we are highly aware that it's the female population that is higher and only less than 20%, we need to rethink, especially women, that what are we not doing that we're supposed to be doing for us to reach justification for the gender balance. Also, the fact that we have different category of people here from the academia and the administration, I would just want us to go back and rethink that, is the law alone really enough for us global agenda, or maybe agenda 2063? Will we reach the 50-50 equality that we are aiming for in the given years? For me, as a woman, I would just like to say our role is to ensure that I'm talking from the academia perspective. I want us to create for women to or dialogue that individual land titling and registration process do not take away the rights that women have had in community. And I'm grateful that for Namibia we have the Communal Land Reform Act, and that really allows women to have access to land, and also the flexible land tenure. And I'm hoping that we just reach our goal in time. And also, as women, we need to encourage and make efforts for joint titling. Hence, also these points goes in point with ensuring women have access to housing finances and joint entitling and women having access financing. I'm talking about enhancing the income inequality. So this specifically speaks to the urban land accessibility, where we need like mortgages for us to access land. So if we look at our statistics, it shows that men have higher income than women. So what does that mean to us as women? So does that give us enough space or opportunity as women to have equal opportunity for us to have access to finances? So I'm just like, we need to create platforms or ways for women to have access to finances. And when we are creating this, we need to have in mind the income inequality idea, like background of the income inequality between women and women. Also, we need to support the development of handbooks and guidelines for personal and cadastral officers that allows, this is some of the tools that will allow women to be educated, because we hardly and encouraging women to raise their voices about the issue of them having access to land. So as cadastral officers and those that are in administrative academia, we need to develop handbooks as education tools for us to empower other women and just let them have their voice heard. The next slide that was first. So I would say when we promote women's rights, we need to promote women's rights in order to do better and defend them, and for us to fully enjoy them. So I would say, first we need to identify challenges which is already there. Women do not have access to land, and the rising challenges that are currently emerging in both rural and urban areas. So we need to carry out study on difficulties of women accessing land, and also we need if we look at Ms. Ndiapupi presentation at the challenges, one of them is that lack of information. So when we talk about now lack of information, we need to train people with great knowledge, or those that are informed, so that they can train, so that especially young people, because now I feel like we need to train people, especially young people, because these are the voices of the future. So we need to train them, and the civil society, the government, so that to make them ambassadors in community, and it needs to be done in local languages or in the languages that people really understand. Because then if we have all this information and an 87-year-old woman doesn't understand it, or how maybe to pass on the rights to the next person, it won't really help that much for us to break the chain of women not having access to land. My last point is just we need support from the government. Create new training circular on women rights and defenses in Africa. So the government needs to put mechanisms which they will need to train people and make sure that the information is really out there, especially in rural area. Yes, if you are on the ground, especially I have worked for Namibia, and I have worked in Namibia, and it's a sad thing that when you sit in the office, you are going to think, okay, a conversation with these people, you'll have a different perspective when it comes to women and land accessibility. You'll see that the information is really not there, and it's not enough. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Regina, on sharing your experience, at least your concerns regarding what we can do to promote women access to land rights. So we will also see how do we promote the Land Reform Act. But now, without further ado, and also to make sure that we keep with time, I'm going to call on the next speaker. She's from Botswana. I don't see her online. Koide Rameng. She was here in the. Is she online? Okay. While we wait for Ms. Hoidi to make her way back online, I'm just going to call for Ms. Muparari to share her presentation. Ms. Parari, are you fine to go next? Titi Muparari?
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine.
Microsoft Teams, but I couldn't download it from my phone.
Okay.
So I went a little bit late. Can we have someone presenting so that I present afterwards?
All right, not a problem. Melania Ipinge. Miss Melania Ipinge? Is Miss Melania Ipinge here? Okay, that's fine. We can move on to the next speaker. As we had presentations from women from academia, and then also from the public sector, would want to hear from women currently working in the community-based organization, People Federation, which is a community-based movement that is affiliated to Slum Dwellers International. Mugabe is a board member and is on the board of trustees and signatory to the Harare Slum Dwellers committee member of the City of Harare Pro-Poor Policy and the Harare Urban Informality Forum. I just want to see if Ms. Sheila is here as well. I saw her. Yes, Ms. Sheila Magara, you can please for us, what has been your experience as one of the women leading the Zimbabwe Homeless People Federation? And yeah, good morning.
Okay, for me, so long you are hearing my voice, I'm going to say what I've got here. Okay, if my name has been said already, okay, we are I'm a member of Zimbabwe Homeless People's Federation, which we say we do our savings in the community. We do exchanges in the community, and women are on the forefront of everything. 85% are women in our federation, and 15% are men just to support us. We also work with the SDI. This is Shack Dwellers government. Women are the ones who are leading everything. Why do we put women on the forefront? Women are the ones who faces all the problems. For if we have evictions and so on, you can see our men run away from us, to go sleep to second wives, and they'll just come and peep. Are you still there when we have been evicted? I am under the tree with the children. So everything we put women on the forefront because we are the ones who faces all the problems. So we have decided to form groups in our for savings. These savings, some of the savings, so some of the groups, that's the women, no men. But it doesn't mean that we don't allow. We want, but number is for the big number is us as a women. We use our savings to upgrade our daily savings. There to go and buy the vegetables. If I with that through our group. We use those sales to create our lives, also to attract our funders, and also go to the council to see so that they can see that we don't have to beg matches, a paper, and a cigarette when we are a smoker. So we have got something in our hand so that they can see we have something. And also when we are going to the council, from the waiting list, when we went to have access to have what can I say, land. So we first go to the waiting list, then we apply for the land. After allocation from the city, so that Mrs. Makali Old Hetty wants a land. She has been a member of Zimbabwe or Homeless People's Federation. So we will be seconding one another, so that person, that wife, that lady should have a land, and we support one another. So this is how we work as federation. And when we are now working, when we have been access to that land, we are the one women who are council will be supervising our work in this organization. We have got also women trained. So when we are now building a house, we are getting those women to build those in our alliance. So it has been helped a lot, this organization, just because women are on the forefront, and we have managed to be trained many things, more education. So they have to keep on giving us those education. So I think for me, I was from the mud, not knowing anything, not even, but now I can say I'm now a professor in school. I did my grade 7, and I've managed even to get a house through this organization. I'm a woman, yet it was not in our culture. It's not allowed a woman to have a house. So I'm very, very much pleased with this, what can I say, educating one another. So that's what I can say as a community leader. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I would say Professor Magara. I think it was quite interesting to hear, especially your views regarding the role of women in getting access to security of Kenya, building your own houses. So I'm quite inspired to learn more on what the Zimbabwe People's Homeless Federation is doing. Thank you so much for making time for this. And we'll have some questions just at the end of this for you as well. So now the next speaker is Ms. Hoidi Ramang from Bicycle University in Botswana. Hoidi, if you are ready, would you want us to project your presentation, or are you going to project yourself?
Yeah, I'll project from this end.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Hoidi is working as a lecturer at the real estate department at Bicycle University, Botswana, and is serving as the head of department. Hoidi is a motivated and innovative within the built environment profession, and she's also a trainer and facilitator. Ms. Hoidi currently holds a master's in city and regional planning from the University of Cape Town and she has presented various papers on real estate on the Real Estate Institute of Botswana at the BA Basako International Conference Research Day. So today she's just going to share with us some of her, what is the status in Botswana with regards to women access to land rights. Ms. Khoidi, the floor is open. You can start.
Thank you and good morning. Good morning, attendants, and thank you very much, Nast, for Am I audible that side?
There is, you are breaking. Maybe you can try again.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just indicate in case I am not audible from that end, but you can see my slides as well.
Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay, thank you. Let me start. We're talking about celebrating the role of women in the land sector in South Africa. So I'll briefly reflect on experiences, progress, and way forward, giving my insights from Botswana. And good to say that it's a good opportunity to discuss and it will go forth as we network together as women in Southern Africa and even beyond Southern Africa. So as of the round, I'm going to cover the introduction, brief background, and then we'll talk about status of gender equality on land in the case of Botswana, and I'll reflect on some promising interventions. And lastly, I will conclude my presentation. So as a way of introduction, I just put up this picture here, which talks to equality versus equity, just for us to understand what we mean by equality. Equality means sameness, treating, like in the case of males and females, in the particular case of access to land, promoting fairness by giving.
So sorry, Khoidi, for this. Somehow it seems like your connection is breaking, and the audio is also Okay, let's do this. What you can do is you can stop sharing, and then we quickly see if we can have Tsitsi present. We will back to you before we go to Dr. Parata.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Tsitsi Uparari, are you available now? All right. While we wait for Tsitsi, I just want to see Anne. Anne, is Miss Inga available? Anne from Namibia Housing Action Group. All right. So we have this. Okay. No, it's fine. We heard from the experience of I would call her now Professor Magara from the Zimbabwe People's Homeless Federation. Maybe if you can share your views on your experience as within the Shack Dwellers Federation before we move on to the next speaker. I think it will be interesting to see what are the experiences if we compare to other countries. Ms. Inga?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just a general introduction. Ms. Inga is a coordinator within the Shack Dwellers Federation of Namibia. She has been facilitating and supporting communities in saving and steering not only the housing constraint consideration, but she has also been leading and supporting data collection efforts and supporting youth within the Federation in Windhoek and Namibia to ensure that they work together to promote access to their land rights. Ms. Inga, you can share a few words. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Royal. Good morning, everyone. As Royal already introduced me, I just want to share those here community believe that the women cannot own a piece of land, but it's changed now. I'm staying in informal settlement called Havana in Windhoek, where we used to share a public toilet, a public tap, collecting wood to cook because there was no electricity. So the women come up with the idea to organize themselves so that they can start saving in order to improve their living condition. We organize ourselves that we cannot afford to buy land as an individual because we are low income. Women play a big role in our community by organizing ourselves to participate in our own development, by collecting our information in the informal settlement so that we can identify our challenge and our development need. After we identify our challenge and development need, we discuss it within our community. We agree within ourselves that can we give this information to our local authority so that the local authority can understand our challenge and our priority need. After local authority understand our priority need, if they want to plan for the informal settlement, they need to plan with us because we understand our situation and we identify our priority need. In our saving group, women are more than men because in Namibia we have 65% of women that are in a saving group. They are more than women. And a lot of women, they are the one who participating in the collecting their own information on the saving because they feel to them it's important to participate because they are the one who are staying with a kid, as my colleague from Zimbabwe say. They are the one who used to stay with their kid and they are the one who know their kids' problem and women's problem. So when it comes to the participation of women in the construction of our houses, women play a big role in our community because we are the one who dig the trencher when we are doing the construction of our houses, giving bricks to the builder, collecting water, and many more. We also educate our women to understand their role and responsibility when it comes to access of land or the right of rent. Because even in some of our saving group, we are finding more difficult when a woman is the one who's joining the saving group and is the one who participating on everything. But when it comes to the rent registration, she feel, no, if I register my name, maybe my husband feel I am not respecting him. That one we need to do more. But in our saving group, women are on front and they are the one who participating more and they are the one who doing more. And women also in our saving group, they are encouraging each other to design our own permaculture garden so that they can access to a healthy food or to veggie. And this initiative come during COVID-19 lockdown. And today I'm proud women, because I was staying in the informal settlement where we used to share the public toilet, where we used to share public tap, where we used to collect firewood to cook. Now, where I'm standing here, I'm a proud woman. I'm owning a house where I'm staying with my husband. It's on my name, and my husband does not have a problem staying with my children and my husband. And I'm saying,
Thank you so much, Miss Inga. I think the impression that we are getting from the Zimbabwe People Federation and then also the Sheikh Dullas Federation in Namibia is that there are women that are doing something in order to access their own land rights. So in their capacity as organized women, they are getting access to information, even to a point where Miss Meme Inga can say that despite the conversations in the community around women accessing tenure and their husbands starting to feel less than, it's something that has not been an issue for her, at least in her household. So we thank you so much, Meme Inga, for making time for this presentation. So to keep in time, we are going to give an opportunity to Dr. Gaino Parata to just share with us a short presentation. But let's do this because we have been here since 10 o'clock, and I know many of us want to shift and do something. I think we can take a 5-minute comfort break, and then we get back exactly at after at least within the next 5 minutes to commence the presentation. I don't know, how will that work? Let me just get a general impression from anyone else in the room. I think a comfort break would be necessary at this point. Okay, let's do this. We'll have Dr. Ratsa after 5 minutes, but for now, let's just take a quick break. And then after Paratsa's presentation, we'll see if we can have Hoide Mareng present. And then I'll also see if Ms. Kohima generally is here. Just in the speakers. So let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll be back. Mario, you can just project the concept note again. Thank you. Okay, greetings. And I know it was a very short break and very abrupt, but we are back. And we're going to have a presentation by Dr. Parazza. I see there's some burning questions in the chat, address that as well before 1300 hours, before 1 o'clock. And after Dr. Parazza, we're going to have that presentation from Miss Mohala Khadi. I would like to call her Hoidi. She's going to help me pronounce the name a bit later on. And then also Titi. Titi, if you could just by show of hand, if you're here, if you're still here, would want to hear from you. All right, and then we're going to have that presentation from Titi. Okay, perfect. Great to see you're here. And then we'll go into a full question answer discussion, and then we will have a closing at the end of the meeting. I think we're going to keep time. You know, they say women are good at multitasking, so I think, and also keeping time. So I think we will make it. So let's just give me a second. All right. So the next speaker is Dr. Gaino Parazza, because Dr. Gaino has a PhD in law and governance from the Wageningen University in the Netherlands, I think. Yes, it's in the Netherlands. And she was also one of the first people that brought up the spark, at least that got us to initiate this conference, to get women together and celebrate and also discuss challenges that women are facing. Dr. Gaino has experience with respect to land and agrarian reform, policy development and management in relation to rural and urban development planning, local management, administration, and decentralization, you know, in terms of how do we rethink governance. She also has quite a broad experience in research design and analysis, especially around issues on gender, and then also linking farmers to markets and large-scale investments in land and livelihood vulnerability. She's also steering the formulation of a gender strategy for the Network of Excellence in Land Governance within the Southern African region. So Dr. Parazza, the floor is open. You can start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Royal, and welcome everybody. I'd like to just thank you to NAST for giving me this opportunity. And I'm pleasantly surprised to see that there's so many women in the node because as Royal was saying, I am helping them to develop their gender strategy. And one of the things I noticed was the invisibility of women. So I'm very happy to see that there are so many of us around. So I'm going to make a presentation on the work that I've been doing for the gender in higher education in Southern Africa. I did a stakeholder consultation for the NAST node as part of the gender strategy. And this was because the node would like to develop a gender strategy to support the NELGA Southern Africa to advance gender equality in land governance. And so this is mainly targeted at academic institutions, which is like the NAST NELGA node and its partners. But why are we targeting the academia? Because this is the place where change happens, where people question what is going on. People push the boundaries, they do experiments, they unearth new knowledge, and they also carve multidisciplinary approaches. And also it is a place where innovation is encouraged, but also captured. Like, for example, listening to our sisters from informal dwelling institutions in Namibia and Zimbabwe, they do all the hard work, and there's people in academia who have training to capture and disseminate it. So the strategy is being done to help NELGA Southern Africa, its staff and its partners to assess the implication of gender equality in the areas of work of the node, to inform the node on how to goals that are outlined in the global, regional, and institutional frameworks that exist, like this Sustainable Development Goals, Africa Union Policy on Land, and
the SADC protocol, among others, and also the national constitution, and also to provide the node with a how-to, a framework for mainstreaming gender into the processes. I'm not going to say everything. The slides are going to be shared, and in the interest of time. So we did and drawn up the strategy, and the purpose of the baseline was to inform the gender strategy by highlighting the background, the reasons for persistent gender asymmetry and underrepresentation of women, and identify the barriers to the representation of women, and highlight innovations and best practices towards gender equality, and to generate recommendations. And like I said, we used combination of methods. It was key informant and second resources. And these are the NAST partner universities that NAST has on its database. You guys will go through this after, and please just update where your institution has been misrepresented and or is missing. And so this was the list that we drew from. So you can see there are many, there are like more than 30, but we only got responses from 8, of which there were 4 women, and these are the universities that responded. So if you see some of the outcomes of what I'm going to present does not quite represent what you think is the node position, and please feel free to contact me. And these are the challenges. I think it was also about timing and COVID, and just also that the women are not the contact persons of the universities listed. And so in terms of what we found out that all the countries in Southern Africa have reformed their constitutions and national laws to give equal rights to men and women, especially around property. I'm saying this, I do know that in some countries there are still some caveats around, especially around customary land rights. And also, we also know that in terms of implementation, practice lags behind the law. And like some of you have already said, the law is not enough. It needs to be complemented by other practices. So, and then even the NELGA Southern Africa Synthesis Report also confirmed that countries' legal provisions provide for non-discrimination and equality of men and women. However, the research is also showing globally that women's enrollment in universities has risen by 9% between 2011 and 2020, but sub-Saharan Africa, it is at 7.9% compared to 10.40% for men. So this is much lower than the global average, which is at 41.6%. The sources for these things are in the report, which will also be shared because we've got a draft that has to be shared and interrogated by members. So in Africa, for example, if you look at the top of leadership of the universities, where 1,500 universities are on the continent, but only 40 of those are headed by women. And in places where women are represented at the top, like the University Council, Senates, and other decision-making bodies, they are male-dominated. And as a result, women continue to be marginalized during lobbying processes, and also they experience sexism, racism, and tribalism as other factors that undermine the participation of women in the enjoyment of their full rights in the universities. And then in terms of the NELGA memberships, the impression was that they all understand what gender equality is, that it is the result of adoption of measures to address marginalized people's access to livelihood, assets, and services. And in this case, we are talking about the NELGA respondents who are in universities, so they articulate that. But having said that, they were not aware of NELGA Southern Africa's gender agenda. They were not even aware of gender policy or strategy that the node has. And I'm pleasantly surprised to note that in the communication to this meeting, it was signing NELGA Gender Committee. So congratulations on that. I didn't have that in the report. So there seems to be a structure now. And then in terms of awareness of guiding frameworks, the CEDAW, the Voluntary Guidelines for Governance of Tenure and Forestry, Africa Union Frameworks, Guidelines for Development of Curricular on Land Governance in Africa, there was inconsistent awareness. Some people either knew this very well, some never heard of anything, others just knew the names and or had come across them in their as initiatives of their own university, not as NELGA Southern Africa initiative. And then in terms of the barriers that women experience to participate in university and land governance within the university, there's institutional structure, which is patriarchy, which perpetuates the university culture, male domination, and the domination in the earth sciences work by men, but not only that, also in some of the conversations and work around land, some people felt that it is dominated by people who are from those geology, surveying, and cadastre, which are not very inclusive of women. And then there was a limited awareness of NELGA Southern Africa's node's commitments to gender. That gender in itself is very complex. There's a lot of work that is going on, and the node is absent from this debate. Actually, there is no thought leadership in the region. Like right now, if we say, can you mention an institution that is leading on land governance in Southern Africa, where people can come together, consolidate their thoughts? There is none. So it's a gap, a place that the node can be represented. And then, of course, that we lacked a gender strategy. There was a limited awareness of resources and incentives provided by the node to advance gender equality. Although there are some scholarships and opportunities that go around, there's a low appreciation of this. And then there was also a concern that there was no equal representation of men and women in the node structures. And there was no mechanism to generate and monitor data. I was very happy to hear some people saying some percentages. In Namibia, we've moved from this to this. Zimbabwe, they were talking about some percentages. We don't have a table where one can go and look for these tables. What is land reform done? What is happening in the informal settlements? What are some of the innovations bottom up that are coming up? What is working? What tools are people aware of that are used by women to secure access to land? We don't have a database. We don't even know whether NELGA itself or NAST is making any advance towards securing women's representation within its structures and in the universities, because we don't have a baseline. And then there was a lack of coherence, and also capacity challenges were noted. So quickly, I'll talk about the recommendations that were made to help the node to achieve gender equality. So there was a need to work on the approach of the node, i.e. to be proactive and assume thought leadership. Like this meeting that we're having here, we're providing a platform. There's a need for policies, there's a need for gender audits, there's a need for the node to host mechanisms and also to model and disseminate best practices. There was also a need, there were some recommendations that were targeting the structure and framework. For example, a specific committee with a mandate to ensure gender equality and or to identify a leading institution in the region to support, to drive the gender agenda, given the capacity limitations at NELGA NAST node. So there were also other recommendations, sorry about that, about partnership and collaborations, one of which is this platform that we're having. I was saying to Royal during the break that we should launch a network of women, but I've also got other examples there of the kind of partnerships that the node should be looking at to develop so as to advance gender equality. There was also a communication recommendation that we should use networking and information dissemination platforms to promote gender equality, increase members' knowledge and awareness of existing gender frameworks, and showcase best practices and increase the visibility of innovations. I was also so very encouraged to hear about the women in informal settlement in Zimbabwe and Namibia, talking about how they've mobilized themselves and directly approached the local authority to make sure that they participate in provision of services and also secure land and housing for themselves. We also had another very good example from an institution in Zimbabwe where they do some, what did you call it? Mapping something. I didn't know about all those things. They're happening, and they're happening with NELGA memberships, but we don't know about them. And then there was also recommendations around research. There was so much research agenda that was set there in terms of what the node can do around registration, around consolidation and dissemination of innovations, around what has it been the impact of land reform, also around what are institutions, countries doing to address the challenges of, for example, legal pluralism. I heard somebody from Lesotho talking about Lesotho land administration, and she was telling us that they mostly deal with formal land registration. But we know that the majority of land in Lesotho is not held as formally registered land. And we also know that in Africa, as a region, in Southern Africa specifically, like the first speaker said, we have land held under different customary regime. We also have traditional leaders. In some places, we have churches having a role and a say. So there is so much research agenda, and the node could lead in supporting some of this. There was also recommendations for capacity building, resource mobilization, and then lastly, there were some best practices that were generated that the node could learn from in terms of appointing women into leadership positions in the university. Some have affirmative actions and ratios. So, for example, Bunda College in Malawi, they have a gender policy. They have gender ratios of 40 to 60, which are monitored. There are also structures in place to monitor enforcement and recruitment. Northwest University in South Africa has a steering committee for gender awareness, network of gender allies, thematic gender studies at all faculties, and the plus NELGA node, which is the technical node of NELGA, has a short course on land, political economy of land. Some of you are aware of it and maybe are graduates of it. And that course, they use a gender parity focus to select participants. But even then, not enough women apply. So what they do, they proactively seek women participants, even if it means they end up recruiting some very junior women to participate in the course. And they also women to ensure visibility. I've already talked about the University of Northwest. And then the last best practice I'll share is in Zambia, the House of Chiefs has launched the gender guidelines for traditional leaders in management of natural resources in their jurisdiction. And so they also have a Chadimbana University diploma course for traditional leadership, and they have a masterclass specifically designed for chiefs and traditional leaders. And these initiatives are focusing on strengthening the gender responsiveness of traditional leaders in the management of traditional leaders. They encourage traditional leaders to challenge discriminatory gender norms and also highlight leaders as well as disseminate tools that chiefs and other people, stakeholders can use to advance the gender agenda. I think the point is about moving away from just sitting in the university and trying to bridge the gap between the scientific knowledge that is produced and solving the problems that are in society. And then on that basis of this baseline, we have developed the draft strategy. So the outline, I think we're going to have another meeting organized by the node so that people can respond to the strategy outline. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Paratsa, for the overview on your findings regarding the status of gender within the universities in Southern Africa. So now we have a few minutes before the end of the session. Just an additional change to the outline. We're going to have that presentation from Hoidi from Biseko University, Dr. Paratsa. If you can share your screen, if you can stop sharing your screen, please. Hoidi, are you able to connect now? Hoidi Rameng?
Yes, I'm connected.
Okay, so we just need Dr. Paratsa to stop sharing.
I don't know. Oh, there. Okay. Am I stopped?
Not yet.
Are you able to hear me, Menari?
Oh, gosh.
Yes, Hoidi Rameng, I'm able to hear you. Maybe so as I already read your profile quickly, so maybe you can just go in and start your presentation.
Okay, I keep on getting this message, yeah, bad network quality. So in case you don't hear me, just
we can hear you, but we can't see your presentation unless you just want to give the presentation verbally without the attached slides.
Yeah, let me try share. Okay. So we were at introduction. I'll just, am I still with you?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So it's just sharing experiences. Let me jump to the introduction. I was just saying we introduced by way of understanding what is the difference between equality and equity.
Sorry, Doctor. Sorry, not Doctor. But sorry, Hoidi Rameng. We seem to have an internet connection problem with the network from your end. But let's do this so that we can make the best use of time. We can open up the floor for questions. I see there are some questions that have been shared on the chat. Yes. Thank you for reminding me, Titi. Sorry, Hoidi, can you just stop sharing your screen? Mario?
Thank you.
All right. Titi, are you able to share your screen now before we get into the Q&A and discussion?
Hi.
So apologies for Hoidi. Sometimes the
understand.
internet is not with us.
Okay.
Yes, no problem.
Okay. She's back, I can see. Maybe she can continue.
No, Titi, it's fine. We can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Okay. Let me try to share.
Okay, so the next presenter is Ms. Tsitsi Mupariri from Midland State University. She's a lecturer in the Department of Surveying and Geomatics. She holds a master's in science in Earth observation, specializing in land administration. And she takes pride in education affairs and willingness to participate. Education is one of her core values. So today she'll just share with us just a short reflection on the theme for the conference today. Titi, you can put your presentation in presentation mode and start.
Okay, it shows that it's still sharing.
Yeah, it is sharing. You are in outline mode. So maybe if you can put it in, what do they call it? Slide view. Slideshow.
Is it showing already?
You can go ahead and present from what you see on your screen. You can start.
Okay, a lot has been presented. So what I actually want to concentrate on is the position of women. The position of women in terms of course, where I come from, in terms of the spatial aspect. I'm more concerned about women and their relationship to land access, and women and their relationship to security of acquired land rights. That is after they have acquired those land rights. And then I'm also concerned about women and power balance in the society, in religion, in marriage, and in post-marriage lives after death of their spouse or divorce. So as a starting point, I want to highlight that in our context in Zimbabwe, land access is more like equal. But if we tend to look at the word equal, I think someone was trying or was actually getting into the depth of the word equality, trying to mirror what it means. It obviously means a lot of things to different people in different places. Equality may mean in terms of labor. In labor, if you have your money, can you access a piece of land when the land being sold is available or is made available? But then it can also mean in terms of value systems. If you actually get the land in a relationship or in a structure that is determined by the society or the family, do you have access to this land? Then an issue of security in the post processes of accessing this land. Do you have real access? Do you have the security of the acquired land rights? Let me give examples of marriages. Marriages, some of the marriages, because we do have a legal pluralistic environment, the one that is not codified and the one that is determined customary or indigenous ways of living. This system, as it might be thought, it might be seen as a mutually exclusive system, but let me announce that in our context, in the country where I belong, there is no clear demarcation of customary contexts when it comes to determining the land rights, when it comes to determining issues of morality, fairness of women within issues of marriages. There is no clear boundary, okay? Then after that, let me talk about the continuum of women. It's not fair to look at women from a one-sided view. We do have single women. We do have married and unwedded women. Of course, that is one of the categories that I have just mentioned. But we also have married and wedded who are working. We also have widowed women. Out of these types in the continuum, there are a lot of women that we still have. And this, of course, renders much more research. And I'm just going to present on that afterwards. But let me talk about the land tenure challenge by highlighting one of the case studies that I have experienced in life. I have actually noticed that these women belonged to a farm. the farm was passed through generations. The drift from one generation to the other was drafted informally according to the men in the first family. And this was a polygamous family. The land held according to freehold, never altered in terms family, although some had already joined the family because of the unfortunate events like death, divorce, etc. As of to date, the farm has been passed to the grandson, while women who have lost their marriages by death or divorce remain landless. Now, there are many questions that this panel, of course, may already raising. They are very crucial, but to me, I only had two questions that I raised. Do land laws in Zimbabwe consider the position of women in the different family structures of the different customary land tenure systems and statutory land tenure systems? And are inheritance laws designed with the dynamically changing positions of women in the society and dynamically changing family structures? So, like I said before, I always think in terms of the spatial aspect. So, as much as I am aware that in land administration, the main concern which they gain from this spatial aspect, which happens to be the cadastral system, is that we have to have a database that points to who owns what and where is what. We find that this information is quite more generic, it's abstract, but insofar as women are concerned and insofar as women tend to be vulnerable, we don't know the women in terms of their position, in terms of their possessions, according to family or societal structures that exist out there. We don't know the rights differ in terms of responsibilities and restrictions. We don't know where exactly these lands that contain women of such vulnerability really belong. Then what I actually think which should also be done as a contribution to earlier presentation is there's really need to understand family structures and models in various land tenure systems. This need is actually missing within administration. Yes, there is the need to understand land tenure types that are outside there, the models of customary tenure systems that are outside there. But family structures are left out, yet what comes out is that cadastral systems which are colonially imported are rooted in the English social system. So what is missing within our indigenous systems, within our local systems in Zimbabwe, is that we don't know the family structures that tend to exist, and we don't know where our woman in these various models tend to fit. So we need to know the different models of family. We need to have funding directed to understanding the structures of family and its evolution in different land tenure systems. At least this can be a starting point that enables us to reach out women in the embedded structures of family in unknown land tenure systems. So e.g. women in marriages of different types need there is need for sincere interrogation there. Some women who are married according to Chapter 5 have no access to the fruits of their labor. They either lose the fruits of their labor along the way. Some unmarried women never have the chance to access land, as access to this land tend to be through a mortgage system that utilizes the salary and the security in their jobs. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Tsitsi, for the presentation and also raising that important question for research. Understanding the different models of evolution in the land tenure system, because that has a connection, the family structures, that has a connection to inheritance, and then also how land is allocated. I would speak from the Namibian perspective, where at least from our perspective, you would have the head of the household mostly being man, being the one to indicate who gets to inherit. So that's a very important question. Thank you so much for your presentation. And this brings us to the part on the questions. We had the first part already interrogated in the morning. Ms. Tsitsi, thank you so much. If you can stop sharing your screen. Thank you. We had the first part already in the morning, and one of the questions that came up as well, and that I just wanted to get an opinion from Dr. Ulefemi and Ms. Jakupi. I think she's already gone as well, looking at how much time we have spent. Just to hear, what are your perspective regarding the aspect on customary laws? Yes, thank you. Oh, perfect. Ms. Jakupi is there.
I almost went, but I'm here.
Okay, perfect. It's great that you are here. So this question was posed by Malcolm Mazambani, and Professor Chiku also answered part of the question, giving the case study of Rwanda. But I would want to hear from the women leaders here, between customary and statutory law, which one would you say is superior, and would it be wise to totally ignore the customary laws? And then, is it possible, from your perspectives and in your experience, is it possible to do away with the negatives that do emerge from our customary systems? We have examples where we do have the Communal Land Reform Act that does promote access to land rights for all. There is the Constitution that also makes sure there's no discrimination. But then there are still some traditions and cultures that make it difficult for women to access land rights. Mr. Jakupi, maybe in your views, what is it that we can still do as Namibian women, and then also as professionals? Because this conference is not only for women, there are also some men here. And what is it that we can do to better improve the 35% of access to women land rights in Namibia?
Thank you, Royal. In my presentation, I spoke about how we, through experience, we have been amending our laws to actually include or improve the representation of women. And that is, as we go, that's the type of improvement we should continue doing. I give a classic example of when we started with Agricultural Commercial Land Reform Act on resettlement. We were just resettling women were a category, but we didn't define them, how we can bring them on board, but they were just classified there as a target group. But when we realized that we were really not getting them on board, we brought in the criteria specifically to say, if you are a woman, you get three points extra. If you are a man, you get 0, because we are trying now to balance that representation. And we started moving from low to high. And as we stand now at 40%, that is the type of advocacy that we need, not to exclude men, but just to ensure that we bring the women at par with their male counterparts in representation, both in agricultural, land ownership, production, agro-processing, and all that. So we just need to continue to enhance and strengthen the legal instruments that will uplift the women counterparts to be at par or even more than their counterparts. Like as I said, if you empower a woman, you indirectly have empowered the entire society. Yes, statutory, it's legal. It's something that can take you to court, and if the two, we will win by statutory. There you can say it's superior. Customary, especially in our laws in land allocation, it's embedded in our laws. And customary is celebrated as long as does not temper with the constitutional rights of either residents. So that's really how we take customs. I submit so. Roya.
Thank you, Mr. Kopi. One of the things that also did come up in our engagement with various stakeholders around gender issues was this organization called the Uganda Community-Based Association for Women and Child Welfare. Maybe just to add in terms of what we can do differently in Namibia as well, is start looking at how do we promote the changes in social norms or social norms transformation. Because we can write the laws, we can propose composition of women within the land boards, we can encourage women to participate. But if we don't have changes within the social norms, it will be difficult for us to see great changes on the ground. So that's my comment.
I quite agree. I just want to also share something I learned from Zimbabwe, the civil society there. During one of the political economy of land, is that they were trying to come up with some protection of women that are returning back after divorce, and that really impressed me. And I'm really looking forward to see how whether they have managed or how it will end. It's something that we can as well learn from our neighbors, because as they are returning back, normally they are not welcome home, and they were trying to legislate so that they can be accommodated. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I would give an opportunity to Tsitsi to share your comments.
I want to contribute to the statutory in the other point, which is informal, or is it customary? The first one that she reacted to. I think what I have also noticed with countries is that we tend to know that we do have a legal pluralistic environment, or let me say a dualistic environment. But there are different types of this legal pluralism. There is need for us to understand where a country is situated. Do we have a combative legal pluralism? Do we have a competitive pluralism? Do we also have an incorporated pluralism? Do we have a complementary pluralism? So in brief, let me say let me refer to a combative instrument, pluralism. The combative pluralism, it is so much that the non-justice system is not in agreement with the justice system. So understanding where we are, it tends to be quite important, so that at least we know the penetrating point. For example, in cooperative, complementary as it says, you will find that the non-justice system works hand in hand with the justice system. But in other types of legal pluralistic environment, you will find that the formal justice system tend to acquire, tend to incorporate, tend to look at their non-justice system and hear their problems and try to change them into statutory system. So it's very important for us to know, for example, what kind of pluralistic environment is in Namibia, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in different kinds of countries.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's very, very important. And then in order for us, once we have that clear understanding, we can try to identify what it is that we can do to better enforce at least the policies that are being set in place. Thank you, Tsitsi. One thing that I also want to highlight is the Institute for Poverty and Land and Agrarian Studies is having a major project running right now, a research project that is looking at women's land rights and customary tenure systems within the Southern African region. So hopefully their results that they are getting from Southern African countries can better help to inform changes in policy and also ensuring that there is a clear promotion and advancement for women land rights. We're nearing the end of our session, so I would like to apologize and say just maybe bear with us for a few minutes. It is always great if you've prepared a presentation to deliver an aspect of it. So I'm just going to ask lastly for Hoiti to just give us a few words and reflections from what the conversation was about this morning, and then also some of the content that you had in your presentation. You don't necessarily have to share your slides, but you can just give us an oral presentation only. Koiti, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Menara, for that. Let me run through it quickly. And I would like to point out that for Botswana, it's similar to all other Southern African countries in terms of access to land by women. We're starting from the pre-colonial period up to currently now. Of course, there have been some changes in terms of laws like the property, the Married Persons Property Act, the Deeds Registry Act, and even the Tribal Land Act. So it's similar with other countries. And I just wanted to okay. Now where we are is we as countries or as Botswana, we've put in place measures in terms of changing policies so as to promote access to land by women. But one point that I want to bring forward is I recently came across this advert. Is those vulnerable groups, including women, they can get it at half the price, provided they bring in proof that they are dealing, or they bring in proof from maybe from a women empowerment institution to support their application. So my argument is, why should then women be justifying their point when you're talking about equity? I understand, of course, that you cannot just open it to everybody, but since there are already provisions to say you should be having a certain financial muscle to apply for financial capability, then why should be more proof of association?
All right. Thank you, Hoiti. I think from my side, I think the connection still is a bit of a problem. We are 3 minutes over time. So we do have your presentation and we will share it as part of the conference documentation. But thank you so much for sharing that and also highlighting the question at the end. Why is that women should motivate getting access to these agricultural plots in Botswana? We will read more and we'll send follow-up questions in the future regarding the progress and status of women access to land rights within your country. So without further ado, we're going to go into the closing end of the conference. we invited one of our researchers to just give a few words of thank you and closing remarks regarding the conference. But before I call on Ms. Vanessa Simata to give us the closing remarks, I'm just quickly going to do the basic summary. So the session was initially organized, as many of you have read in the concept, to celebrate the role of women within the land sector. From our presenters, we have seen that we do have captains of industry, leaders in research that are speaking to and informing policy formulation around the advancement of women land rights, and also supporting or encouraging the formulation of discourse around the challenges that women are facing within the African continent in accessing women land rights. So we appreciate the contribution from Professor Olefemi, and then also her highlighting the importance of ensuring that once we ensure that women have land rights or women land rights are secured, we're able to address that aspect of respect, dignity, and also the protection of other primary rights. Because in some countries, when we have women not having access to secure land rights, they are at a danger to be affected in other areas of their lives. We had the great presentation from Lesotho, where Ms. Matalai shared the importance or the work that the Land Administration Authority in Lesotho is doing in ensuring that they're implementing legislation to promote access to women land rights. And then Mr. Kupi shared a very great presentation on the status of women land rights. And then also what I picked up at the end is what we can do in terms of ensuring that women that are divorced or at least are separated from their spouses are protected within the access to land rights within the customary areas. We had the presentation from Juliana, which highlighted the importance of having young girls educated early on the importance of women land rights, and also participating in activities that can create awareness in how we strengthen these land rights. I particularly enjoyed the presentation from Professor Mama Sheila, on what women are doing in Zimbabwe to ensure that they promote their own access to land, and then also that they are able to save finances. And this was complemented very well from Ms. Inga Boyer, who shared her experience as a woman who used to live in an informal settlement and has worked through the years to ensure that she has her own house right now that is under her name, and where she feels protected and can also continue assisting other women within the Federation and in her community to access land rights. So the presentation from Titi was also quite important, and it's quite one of the fresh ones on understanding the different modules of family evolution and the different land tenure system. We will interrogate this. Please do share your presentation that we can include it in the documentation. And the presentation from Regina, I think, was quite relevant as a young a woman within the land sector, to also understand what are the avenues that are available for mentoring and education, and ensuring that the women that are working within the sector are well informed and capacitated. The issues that have been raised here are all quite relevant, and Dr. Parata shared interestingly what we can do moving forward in creating similar platforms where women can come together and share and discuss and find the gaps that are available in securing and advancing the rights of women. There's also been a proposal to see if we can have a forum that will focus on or a platform where women within Southern Africa can come together and we can share our experiences. The ones in academia can co-author papers. The ones in the public sector can see how do they inform and advise each other to access more information and build capacity for themselves. So generally, this is my basic summary. We had more questions going on, and there are also some comments within the presentation. I like the summary here by Samuel or Ramakoba. We will incorporate it within the conference summary. So without further ado, I would want to call Ms. Vanessa Simata. She is a researcher within the Namibia University of Technology, but currently she's based in the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. She's attending this conference in her capacity as a researcher, where she has worked with us for the past year as a research assistant. Her background is in land administration, regional and rural development, and she's quite passionate around climate issues, or at least climate and access to land rights. Vanessa, if the floor is open, to just give a few remarks before we close off the session. Vanessa?
Yes, thank you, Royal, for that introduction. So we have come to an end at this conference on women and land rights, and on behalf of the organizing committee, that's NAST as the NALGA node under the Department of Land and Property Sciences, I would like to thank all speakers for participating at this very important event, knowing that it was short notice. This conference on women access to land and land rights, speakers shared experiences of women's access to land in Southern Africa, highlighting land reform challenges and opportunities. In Southern Africa and most of Africa, women are the highest contributors to agricultural production in the farming industry. This emphasizes the need to increase women's access to land rights, the need to educate and mentor women in the space of agriculture, and this to achieve gender equality for a sustainable tomorrow. We hope to keep in touch with all participants as a node for future possible collaborations in research to further add value and knowledge base in academia, civil society, and government. I thank you all, and we may close now.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We will keep in touch. We will share the conference material online. Goodbye.